Hi, my name is Maggie, and I just finished my third year studying ecology and evolutionary biology. I am in the evolutionary and genomics research lab. Today, I will be showing you how scientists use the scientific method to study and learn things that they are interested in. This method makes sure that their results are derived through careful preparations and lets other scientists repeat the same experiment and compare the results. The steps are observation, hypothesis, experiment, data analysis, conclusion, and the iteration step means to use the results to make new hypotheses or predictions. A question I am particularly interested in trying to study is how does the sun affect plant growth rate? Since green onions are easy to grow and they are abundant, I will be using that in this experiment. My observation is that plants that are under direct sunlight appear to be taller than plants in the shade. And based on this observation, I could make my hypothesis. My hypothesis is that a green onion exposed to sunlight will grow taller than a green onion that does not receive sunlight. For this experiment, we will need 10 green onions. Replication is important in science because if you only do an experiment once, it's likely that the results are due to just chance. But if you repeat an experiment multiple times and obtain the same results over and over, it is much more likely that the results is real. And we want to make sure that each stalk has around the same diameter and length. In other words, we will control for the initial stalk diameter and length. So we want to place each stalk in a plastic cup with 1 ounce of water each, around that much. And we also want to control for the size of the cup and the amount of water. 5 cups will be in the sun, while the other 5 will be in the shade. Our independent variables are therefore the sunny or shady environments. Our dependent variable is going to be the height of the green onion after 1 week of growth. Rewatering the plants every day to ensure that the water quantity remains the same throughout the experiment. When rewatering, fill up the water to the same level in all of the cups. By controlling as many variables as possible, we can study the impact of the independent variables while minimizing changes in other variables. Now that it has been a week, we will collect the jars and measure the lengths of the green onions. We're going to measure the green onion that has been growing. So for each one of them, this is what we're going to do. So we're going to take a green onion. As you can see, this is where we cut off before. And since we're using inches, because that's what my ruler, it's the easiest for my ruler at least, so I'm using inches, and it's the only ruler that I have. So we're going to line up the inches where it starts, where this is where we cut off, because we only want to measure the growth. So this is our little point. So we're gonna make sure that it's right at the 0 inches, and then we're just gonna see how much it grew. For this green onion, grew in the sun, the height growth was measured at 3.4 inches. Now measure the height of the remainder green onions in the sun and shade as you record your data. Now we will impute the data on Excel for data analysis. So now that we got all the data points for each of the green onions, this is all the 5 for sun, and this is all the 5 different green onions for the shade. We are going to take the average in order to analyze the data. So we're going to find the average, and keep in mind this is in inches. The average for this, you would kind of just use this function. You put an equal sign and then you put what you want. So we want to find an average, so we're going to click average, and then we're going to highlight all these 5 rows, press enter. Now we're going to do the same for the average for the shade. So we're going to put average as our function again, and then we're going to highlight those 5 data sets and then press enter. And now we have our 2 averages. So now that we have these 2 datas, I want to kind of organize it so it's easier to graph. So we're going to copy this, and then we're going to put it on the right side, and then paste special, and just put in the values. And these are averages, and then we also know that this is in regards to the sun and the shade. Okay, so now we could graph this. Now we do insert. We're gonna do bar graph. We're gonna do a 2D column. After completing the X and Y axes and writing a title, then we are done with making a graph. Based on the data that we collected, it lines up with our hypothesis that the green onion exposed to sunlight will allow it to grow bigger, and the green onions that did not receive the sunlight. However, even though the average green onion height is higher in the sun condition, we cannot know if the difference in green onion height between the two conditions is real or if it's due to chance without analyzing our data statistically. Statistics is a branch of mathematics that scientists use frequently to determine how likely the results are to be true. Also, we cannot necessarily conclude that the sunlight is the only factor that allowed the green onion to grow bigger. The green onion that were exposed to the sun also experienced different temperatures and humidity. Future experiments should be conducted to manipulate factors such as humidity and temperature, which is the iterative step in the scientific method. This mini project is one example of how scientists use scientific methods to approach their observations. Researchers use scientific methods to study human health, but since it is unethical to perform these experiments on humans, they use model organisms like fruit flies. Fruit flies are great model organisms because they possess short generation times, they could be maintained in large populations, and are small and cheap enough to maintain in the lab. Also, there are fewer ethical concerns about doing experiments with fruit flies than with mammals, allowing researchers to set up complex experiments to study health and disease. Since fruit flies are genetically similar to humans, the results of the studies from fruit flies can be produce hypotheses for human studies. And the scientific name for the fruit fly is Drosophila melanogaster.